Boker Tov, everybody. Shalom Aleichem. Happy Purim Katan. This is a wonderful day of Purim Katan. It's the 14th of Adar 1, so it's the day of the small Purim. Purim, of course, is the 14th of Adar 2 this year, but now today we can celebrate Purim Katan. So I was mentioning yesterday that we have two Purim, two Adar months. So we have a double portion of gladness and joy, a double portion of a double mazel of a blessing. And we have a mirror image here of Purim. So even though we celebrate Purim next month on the second Adar, we're still today bringing down the Kedusha of Purim and this Purim Katan, the small Purim. And so may it be God's will that you will see amazing blessings in your life today, and you'll be able to bring down reversals, divine reversals in your life that will be for the good and for a blessing in the merit of Messiah Yeshua. I want to jump right into Tisa and start where I left off yesterday. We were talking about the paradox of sin yesterday and how none of us want to sin. We should not strive to sin. We should do everything we can do to prevent sinning, to prevent falling, to prevent failure. And yet, at the same time, we recognize this mystery that sin itself actually leads to a higher elevation. It leads to, a place in God that we cannot get to unless we sin. So again, like I said, there's this great paradox where it actually elevates us. So like the Talmud says, a Baal Teshuva, a Zaddik, perfectly righteous person, cannot stand, in the place of a Baal Teshuva, somebody who's made Teshuva. And then we have, that verse, which maybe we'll get a chance to cover at some point, from Proverbs 24:16, where it talks about a righteous man falls 7 times. A righteous man falls 7 times. And I emphasized the fact yesterday that we're talking about people here that are in covenant. And I want to reiterate that point today because, Kepha is asking the Messiah, how many times does he have to forgive his brother? And again, he's referring to somebody who's in covenant. And the reason I emphasize this, and I think people who are listening to me understand why, but just to be clear, a lot of times we think about sinners, we have this mindset that if you're in the covenant and you're following God, then you should be impervious to sin. And if you're not and you fall and have a failure, then you're just a particularly bad reprobate. And, and our tolerance level for such people is generally extraordinarily limited. However, if you're not in the covenant, well, man, you could just be, you'd be practically Charles Manson. And when you make Teshuva, we will celebrate your absolute sincere Teshuva. You see the double standard. It's like I'm outside the covenant, so I make Teshuva, and I'm just terrible, horrible person. But we all swoon and say, oh, their Teshuva was so real. And yet somebody who's in the covenant and has a failure, we scrutinize their Teshuva with a microscope and, study them like they're some type of, lab animal to determine whether or not we can figure out if their Teshuva was actually sincere. And of course, we don't want anybody to do that to us. And naturally, they don't have to because we are perfect in all things. But you see the dichotomy there. And that's why I want to point this out, because It says here in Proverbs, a righteous man falls 7 times. A tzaddik, even it says in the actual Hebrew. That blows people's mind. And the Kepha said, how many times do I have to forgive my brother? That's somebody in covenant. And Yeshua said, even if somebody sins against you 7 times in a day, you have to forgive them. 7 times in a day. In just a day, not in a week, not in a month, not in a year, not in a lifetime. 7 times in a day. And so that strikes us as like, wow. But, somebody was having a conversation one time and they said, yeah, they were talking to, sister know-it-all or brother righteous, whatever. And they were talking about this type of situation. And the person responded to them and said, well, yeah, I think the person was trying to say, hey, look, I know a little bit about your background. Your background is very similar to theirs. So why are you so hard on them? With their sin and their failure, doesn't that give you pause to say, hey, I've kind of done something like that in my past. Maybe I should just kind of think about it and cool it, And they said, well, yeah, but that was before I was into Torah, because prior to that, this person was like a Christian. So you see all the different, all the excuses and justifications we tend to make for ourselves. And Rabbi Twersky, by the way, talks about this to a great extent, that we like to justify our own actions. Well, I was a Christian, but now when I came into Torah, and so they're trying to, you see what I'm saying? You know what that's called in other colloquial speech? It's called moving the goalpost. We move the goalpost, right? When it's us, we want the goalpost close and in the center. When it's somebody else, we want to move the goalpost all around. While they're trying to make Teshuva, we want to, and it's just arrogance. The point here is to understand that, first of all, nobody's perfect. But again, we have this interesting paradox where perfection isn't even where it's at. And this is so difficult to talk about because I don't want to come across cavalier and just suggest that, hey, don't worry about it. If you sin, it's no big deal. No, it's a huge deal. And there's a lot of negativity that comes along with it. Reputation damage, trust issues, relationship challenges. It's not good. Okay. So it's not something that we want to open the door to or pursue. And I want to be crystal clear on that. And we don't want to provide excuses. We don't want to pat ourselves on the back and say, job well done. And at the same time, we have to recognize this spiritual mystery that we can only get higher when we fall. And that only God can do. And I mean it to be a reality check for all of us, and B, a humbling concept for all of us. So we don't look down on people. We don't, look at them as, oh, I can't believe you did that. No, see, they're higher than you now. If they've made real teshuva, that's the thing, is that when somebody's really fallen hard and they make sincere teshuva, which, by the way, only God can judge. And we, by the way, should be basically not wanting to touch that with a 10-foot pole, because we don't want our teshuva so scrutinized, right? I mean, really? And so what we don't realize is that when they've made sincere teshuva and now they're back, they're actually higher than us now. And lastly, I want it to be an encouragement for all of us, because the Satan working through people who have a spirit of religion will try to destroy you when you have a failure in your life. And that, by the way, is rooted in jealousy. It's rooted in arrogance. It's rooted in vanity. It's rooted in their own lust for whatever it is that you have that they want. Trust me. And they'll just try to tell you you're done, you're finished, throw you in the dumpster. God can forgive you. I guess you'll go to heaven, I suppose. But while the remainder of your life on earth is basically worthless, and it'll be vicious. And I'm trying to encourage you, because I've been there. I'm trying to encourage you to not listen to those people, because they don't matter. They don't. matter at all. What matters is your relationship with Hashem, and Hashem is far greater than those people. And he will put you back on the top. And then when you're on the top, you will have great, amazing humility and understanding that you're there only by the grace of God. I wanted to encourage you with that. That's why this message is so important to me, aside from the personal impact it has on my life, but I want it to be encouraging to you. It's sad that people in the covenant are so vicious, but just ignore them. Trust me. And by the way, they're going to go through their own turmoil. Yeah, I believe that. It's coming to a theater near them. So just forget it and move on. And so this is the paradox of sin. I want to jump right into this again. Okay, we left off yesterday. I didn't get a chance to finish the introduction to the Kehel Tumash here, but I want to jump right into it and go here. So it says here. So we left off yesterday talking about that the pathos of Teshuva is thus the elevation of the Jewish people, and even after we receive the Torah, and even after we receive the tabernacle, we have this pathos. Now, what that statement is actually saying is that you can have the Torah and you can have the tabernacle, but you still need Teshuva. So Teshuva it's almost as if the golden calf incident had to happen. We look at it, and rightfully so, as a great tragedy. How could it happen? I can't believe it happened. Man, I wish it didn't have happened, right? And that's a good attitude to have. It's the attitude we're supposed to have. Just like we have that attitude about anything in our life. We can look back at any point in our life where we've made a big, stupid mistake, okay? And we can say and should say, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish that didn't happen. I regret it for my entire life. And that is appropriate, and we should be saying that. And yet, at the same time, we can recognize that because those things happen, and because we ultimately came to God as a result of it, or made Teshuva, it has made us a better person. It's kind of like saying, all of us have regrets in life, right? Well, all of it, most of us do. Some of you people who are not really mortals don't really have any regrets. There's a few of you out there, but some of us mere mortals have regrets. We look back and say, man, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have taken that career path, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kind of things we could say. We wish we should have done. And yet we all recognize, most of us anyway, that had we done those things, we would not be where we are right now, most likely. And in some cases, it's extreme. If I look back on my life and the things that I wish I would have done, the choices I wish I would have made, that I went left instead of going right, and all this kind of stuff. I look back on that and go, man, I missed out on the opportunity, and I sure wish I would have done that. And yet I realized that had I done that, I would not be here. That is for sure. So there's that, right? We have to recognize that. So we have that idea about the golden calf. We wish it didn't happen. It shouldn't have happened. And yet what's being stated here in this commentary is it's almost as if it had to happen, because had it not happened, it would not have manifested to us the power of Teshuva. So again, there's that paradox where we don't want it to happen. We wish it didn't have happened. And yet, had it not happened, we would not appreciate God's ability to bring us up from the dust and the ashes of life. So it says, seen in this light, Parashat Tisa encapsulates the entire overview of creation. And that's the wonderfulness about this particular parashat. So listen to this breakdown. It says it begins with the original perfection, that is the tabernacle and the first tablets, continues on to the drama of history, the golden calf, which in large part is a replay of the Garden of Eden failure, and ends with the foretaste of the Messianic resolution in that we have a renewed covenant and a second set of tablets. So which will, all of this, of course, will elevate the world to a higher level of perfection than it knew in the beginning. And so that's the other paradox, right? So the renewed covenant vis-a-vis the Messiah actually raises us to a higher appreciation than the original covenant. You know, it's like the old, it's like the old saying, you don't know what you have until you lose it. And then if you're graced enough to get it back, then you appreciate it all the more. I think that we could talk about that from a husband and wife relationship, and that's certainly true. Let me use a simple example for you. I think I told you this story. Maybe I didn't. I don't remember. But I was thinking about all the things that God has done for me in my life, and I've made a list. I encourage you to do the same thing, right? I encourage you to make a list and write down all the things that God has done for you and keep it near you. I keep it right here underneath my calendar. This is my list of stuff. All the things that Hashem has done for me in my life. I was able to sit down and think about 47 things that I could write down that God was able to do for me. And I'm sure I've left out several. But I was thinking about this, and a long time ago, my shofar that I have, that I blow, was given to me as a unique gift. I don't have. I won't go into the story behind that, but it was pretty incredible. This couple presented this shofar to me back in 2000. I want to say it was 2005, I think, when they, or maybe the early part of 2006. But they gave me this shofar, the one that the big one that I have, and it was a huge blessing. And then we took it on a trip with us out of country, and when we came back, the flights were all messed up. They rerouted us all over the place. We ended up having to fly from Florida to Oklahoma City and then rent a car in Oklahoma City and drive home. And it was wee hours of the morning. It was late. We were exhausted. We get home and we get everything out of the car and we turn the car into the rental place. And lo and behold, I forgot about the shofar. The shofar is in its bag. The bag is dark navy felt. It's had rolled to the back of the trunk, and I didn't see it. And I didn't recognize that I was missing it until like the next day. And I was devastated. I called the rental company. The car is gone. They've rented it out for like a 3-day period. And of course, shofars are, this type of shofar is expensive. It's unique, kind of a one of a kind. There's other things about it that you just can't go replace it. And I was just devastated. And we went to the lost and found up at the rental car place. It's this huge rental car. It's one of the airport that's like a city. And the airport in Dallas Fort Worth is literally bigger than Manhattan, literally. So it's massive. And I was just devastated. And they said, well, the only thing we can do is wait for the car to come back and see what happens. And so we were praying. Oh man. And then the car was returned and they told me they didn't see anything, but they allowed me to come up and just look. And so when I opened the trunk, that had a very deep trunk, and I looked in the far back and I couldn't see anything. It was black. And I reached my hand in there and I felt the shofar. It had rolled to the very, very back of the trunk, and evidently nobody ever saw it. And I was just overwhelmed to have my shofar back. And so therefore, I have a kung fu death grip on that thing now. I mean, I don't even take it anywhere. It's like, yeah, you know what I mean? You appreciate something even more when you've lost it. And this is why when we lost the tablets and then we regain them back for the renewed covenant, the covenant means more to us. This is why the theology of, well, we broke the covenant, the law of Moses, and then JC came and we no longer care about the law of Moses anymore. That's exact opposite of the way that we think as human beings. Because we lost the covenant as Jews, we were devastated. And the Messiah brings us back to the covenant. That makes us want it even more or appreciate it even more. It goes on to say, and I'll to transition a little bit here. It begins to talk here about the half shekel. And I think this is a wonderful conversation to have, particularly because of upcoming Purim. I've mentioned before that the season of gift giving is not Hanukkah, as most people think. It's actually Purim. Giving gifts, mishloach manot, sending, and usually it's gift baskets full of treats and so on. But particularly it's giving tzedakah to the poor. Okay. And so the month of Adar, and now we have 2 months of Adar. So now we have Purim Katan today. And then, next month we'll have Purim again. But tzedakah, giving. You and I need to be looking for opportunities to bless people with tzedakah. And the reason for that is because when we give, so a lot of people focus on, well, if I give and I'm generous, then that opens up the avenue of blessing in my life. And by the way, that's 100% accurate. But let me tell you something that's more important. Giving tzedakah opens up the channel to blessing. Yes, it does. But more importantly, it opens up the channel of atonement. Giving tzedakah is a means by which our faults and our failures and our sins, okay, are wiped away. Okay? So, it says here, this explains why the parashah begins with the half shekel tax. The half shekel tax was a process of Teshuva. Ladies and gentlemen, this is so important. Giving tzedakah is all about Teshuva. You ever talk to somebody who, and if I step on toes here, I'm not sorry. I mean that with my whole heart. If I step on your toes here, I'm not apologizing. Because I think that being stingy and greedy, let me rephrase that. It's not that I think. The Bible teaches us, and the Messiah said explicitly, that being greedy and stingy is one of about the worst character trait we can have. And my skin cringes and crawls when people try to argue why they shouldn't give tithes. And, I've heard it all in 25 years of ministry. This is 27. I forget now. It's 27 or 25. It doesn't matter. But in all these many years, I've heard everything. Eye roll. I've heard it from all sectors. Why we're not supposed to tithe because you know what it boils down to. By the way, it's all wrong, all of it. But you know what the real source of all that is? Greed. People just don't want to they just want to keep their money. Because it doesn't even make sense, right? People want to come to a facility, use the facility, enjoy the facility, enjoy the teaching, enjoy everything about it, right? Come to the functions and the parties and the whatevers, right? And they want to not contribute to it. They just want to take and not give. That's called stealing, actually. it's just not being generous. It's just stinginess. It's a totally bad attitude. It doesn't even, I mean, at the very least, you're not pulling your own weight. But if we look at it from a deeper spiritual point of view, somebody who doesn't want to give, doesn't want to tithe, is somebody who's really not interested in Teshuva, because, man, giving like this, it's all about atonement. It's called the money of atonement. Now, I've tithed most of my life, y'all. And I can tell you that, God has blessed. I don't even think about it anymore. It's so natural. It's just a part of who we are. My wife and I, it's just a part of who we are. And Hashem meets our needs, exceeds our needs. And I just cringe when I would think about, well, I should keep this money. What? I keep that money, and that's a quick, actually, the sages talk about that. They talk about the quickest way to become poor is to be stingy, and the quickest way to become wealthy is to be someone who tithes. I didn't get that off of TBN. I got that out of the Talmud. And so that's what you understand. And so I want to encourage you, and please don't bother sending me emails if you're out there listening about how we're not supposed to tithe or blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to listen to them. I'm not going to read them, because I know the root of it. The root of it is you just want to hold on to your money. And I'm going to encourage you right now, don't be that person. That is a terrible midot. The Messiah said, if your eye is dark, then your whole body is dark. That is a euphemism for being stingy, having a dark eye, an evil eye. Don't be stingy. And particularly now. And there's people who contact me all the time. Well, Rabbi, I'm difficult financially or whatever, tithing. Well, talk to God about that. And sometimes you just got to step out. You know what I mean? And you say, wow, that's easy for you to say. No, it's not easy for me to say. I've had to do that. Sometimes you just got to step out. And that's something people say, well, I'm going to start out tithing, but I'm going to do 2% or 5% or 8%. And hey, I'm not telling you not to do that. I'm just going to tell you what I would do. Let me just give you me. Okay. Way back when I was in the same boat, way back when Rebbe and I struggled to have 2 nickels, we had, what was the old saying? We had more month than we had money left over, or something like that. I've been there. I've done that, man. If you knew all the different jobs I've done in my life, you'd probably be shocked just to make a living. But let me tell you what we did. We just did it because we believed God. And I'm just telling you, I'm just going to give you an encouragement, because people ask me all the time, what should I do? And I try to be, I try to work with them. Like, look, I'm trying to look at it from your point of view and all that. And I totally get it. And I don't fault anybody. I'm not judgmental on people or whatever. I don't ask to see your bank book and all those kind of nonsense. I'm not even involved in counting the money when it comes in for the tithes. I have nothing to do with that whatsoever. Okay. At all. And I'm just going to tell you what I do. What we did. We just jumped in. Just jumped in. And guess what? Guess what God did? He did the math. And it didn't, in my book, the math didn't add up, but somehow he did the math and it worked out. So I'm just going to tell you, you just got to jump in sometimes. It's like when you get into the pool and the water's kind of chilly. And if you try to go in like step by step, it's like, ugh. But sometimes if you just jump in, yeah, it's cold. There's like a flash of cold, but all of a sudden your body climatizes way faster than if you just try to go in incrementally. And I'm just going to tell you, sometimes you got to dive in. And a lot of people don't want to hear that and all of that. And I totally understand. I get that. I'm right there with. I understand that's how the human brain works. But I'm just going to tell you what advice I would give you is what I would do. And there you go. So this explains why this parashah begins with the half shekel tax. The half shekel tax was a process of teshuva. The money was collected to finance the communal sacrifices which atone for the sins of the people. Each man must give God a ransom for his soul, when they are counted. See, one reason that people should be tithing is because when you tithe, it involves you in everything. Yes, yes, yes. You heard it here first. When you tithe, see your money tithes, and we're talking about charity and tithing. It's you charity and tithing, whatever. But we're kind of covering it all right now. When you tithe, your finances support the work of the ministry. Now, you may not be involved in every aspect of the ministry: hospitality, greeting, taking care of widows and orphans, teaching the Aliyah, being involved in different aspects, whatever. But when you give your half shekel, if you will, you become part of the community service, and therefore everything that happens at the ministry is now accredited to you. So if you're a person who doesn't tithe, you just want to sit back and take, then guess what? The opposite is true. I'm just shooting straight with you. So this is the spiritual aspect of this. The spiritual aspect of this is when you tithe, you get not a piece of the pie. It's as if the pie is accredited to you. This is what was the power of the atonement money. When one guy gave a half shekel. I mean, what does a half shekel buy? I don't know. One lamb, maybe a half a lamb. I don't know. But I throw my half shekel in there. And guess what? Because I've done that, every single offering that's offered in the temple is now, I have a part of it. I'm invested in it. I'm a vested member. I get the dividends from that. And I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to step on some toes, I know, but I'm going to not care. If you're not tithing, you're wrong. You can try to justify it. You can try to, whatever you want to do. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. You're just wrong. It's a wrong spirit. It's a wrong spirit. You need to be involved. And sometimes, Pituke Holtum, I was just reading Pituke Holtum. Pituke Holtum was talking about giving. He says you should support the work of the Torah scholar. And if you support the work of a Torah scholar, it'll be A, as if you yourself are studying the Torah and doing the work, and B, it'll atone for any time that you miss Torah study. That's Pituke Holtum saying that. So it's very powerful. And the Yetzer Hara will try to talk you out of it. And the root of it's just greed. I'm just going to shoot straight with you. Some people are going to get mad at me and turn me off and unsubscribe. And I'm sorry for that, but it's the truth. I got to tell you the truth, right? It doesn't do you any good to come to the doctor's office and him just tell you, when you've really got something bad wrong with you. Like, oh, no, you're fine. Take an aspirin. You'll be good. That's not doing you any favors. Okay? Don't be that person that wants to have your ears tickled. And nothing will disrupt somebody's deal than somebody telling them, hey, you need to contribute financially. Why? Why is that the big deal? And why is it that the sages point out charity as being so important to the process of Teshuva and atonement? Why? And yet people don't want to, they don't want to turn loose of their finances. And I totally understand that. I understand that feeling. I totally get it. Trust me. I do. I really do. I have been there. My wife and I have been broke as a joke. We get it. So why? Why is such a big deal? And here's the reason. Because when we work and we gain financially because of that, that money represents the totality of who we are. Our efforts, our time, our sacrifice, our physical efforts, our mental efforts, our emotional efforts, all the education and experience we had to gain to get the job. So the reason that we're so attached to that money is because it's very much representative of who we are as a human being. And that's why it's so important to be generous, because You really can't say you've laid down your life until you're faithful in your giving. This is why, by the way, that when we come, the Torah teaches that when you come to Passover, you have to stand before God. Everybody had to do this back in the temple days. They had to stand before God and declare before God, I have given all of my tithes and I have not held any back. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, God wanted us to do that before we experienced the Exodus. Why? Why? If God doesn't really care, hey, keep it if you want to, give it if you want to. But why is it so important to God? Because God understood that gift financially represented laying down our lives. And it's really hard to say I've laid down my life when I couldn't lay down my checkbook. So you get 10%. Even if you're wealthy, the sages say give no more than 20%. So it's not about the money. And I don't care what you make. And by the way, I don't care how big your tithe is. You say, well, my tithe, Rabbi, my tithe is significant. So what? Well, my tithe, I don't make much money. It's not very good. Hey, I don't care. It makes me no difference. God is going to take care of this. Okay. He's already proven that to me. So it's not about me here. Or about this ministry. It's about you. It's about you. Hashem is my witness. It's about you. It doesn't matter. God said a long time ago, if we were all faithful in this situation here with tithing, then the abundance would be like piles of silver outside the door, just like Solomon's time. The reason it's not today is because people have been lied to by the Yetzer Hara, and I'm just going to encourage you not to do that. Now, tomorrow we're going to come back and talk about this even more. We're going to talk about the atonement money, the fiery shekel tomorrow. We're going to dive even deeper into this. Don't be scared. How many of you are scared? Are you scared? If you're scared out there, say I'm scared. Sometimes it's okay to say you're scared. Sometimes it's okay to say you're scared because sometimes you've got to do some things scared. Remember, this is one of my favorite quotes. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward in the presence of fear. That's courage. When it comes to giving, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes you just need courage. And remember the definition of courage. We're going to talk about it tomorrow, more about the fiery shekel and dive into some insights into that. Until then, be blessed. Enjoy Purim Katan. Be charitable. Hey, take some money, put it in an envelope, and go out to the store and randomly give it to somebody today. Pray about it. Ask God to show you who needs it. But bless somebody. Put some money, put it in an envelope, and just go to the mall or the grocery store. Pray and ask God to help you and just bless somebody with that envelope. Do it today. Do it today. God bless you. Thank you so much for being here. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We'll talk about the fiery shekel tomorrow. Shalom Aleichem, everybody.